Hello and welcome to the program from the National Assembly. I am Itaire Ikben. After about 5 months of consultations leading to consensus, the House of Representatives has passed for second reading the 4 tax reform bills submitted to it by President Bola Tinubu, and this was done after several hours of debate on the floor of the House. This was during the House plenary of Wednesday, the 12th of February, 2025. Let's take a listen to the debate on the floor of the House.
The third order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to establish Joint Revenue Board, the Tax Appeal Tribunal, and the Office of the Tax Ombudsman for the harmonization, coordination, and settlement of disputes arising from revenue administrations in Nigeria and for related matters. The fourth order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to repeal certain acts on taxation and consolidate the legal frameworks relating to taxation and enact the Nigerian Tax Act to provide for taxation of income, transactions, and instruments, and for related matters, all standing in the name of the House Leader. Honorable members will recall that the bills were read the first time on Tuesday, 8 October 2024. I now invite Honorable Julius, the House Leader, to move that the bill be read second time.
Rise to move that the bills HB 1756, HB 1757, HB 1758, HB 1759 as consolidated be read in second time. I so move.
Leader of the House, can you move? Sorry, can you lead in the debate?
On the bills recently listed and consolidated, famous tax bills. Mr. Speaker, I would like to begin by thanking Mr. President for the courage to address this issue of reforming the tax sector, so to put it. It's been there, multiple collection, multiple diversion, and so forth, but he had the courage to, for the first time, bring a bill in here to deal with the problem. I also want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, with the courage and maturity with which you have handled this issue, in spite of the tendencies and trends and tensions it has generated. I would also like to appreciate our governors for the role they played in putting this up for conversation and reaching a conclusion in the interest of the nation. And finally, I want to thank our colleagues and those that expressed their reservations in different ways, did it because of the respect they have for this House and for us to perform our duties as legislators. I want to thank them for that courage, for that vision, for that commitment and dedication to the principles of democracy and the rules that guide relationships in this House. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, the focus of the tax reform bills, essentially, to ensure a total overhaul and modernization of the tax system, which is chronically outdated and one of the most backward on earth. Second, to drive Nigeria's economic transformation, a transformation that we've all been part of, trying to reposition, refocus, and redirect the processes of production, accumulation, and exchange in order to improve the lives of the ordinary person. Empower our citizens and support households through several concessions that have been made, as I will be listing very shortly. Enhance revenue mobilization and ensure that a conducive and competitive environment for investments. Many have complained that investors are leaving the country because they are paying taxes to 10, 11, 12, sometimes 15 different agencies. And without receipts sometimes. this will cure that lacuna and deliver sustained and inclusive growth, equity and efficiency, and sustainable development in our country. These are lofty goals, and we can only pray that we do our part and then let the nation do its part in the interest of our people. As we all know, these 4 consolidated bills were read by the Speaker earlier. The Nigeria Tax Bill, the framework for the imposition and harmonization of the major taxes, corporate tax, capital gains tax, personal income tax, stamp duty, value-added tax, etc. There are so many legion of them. The Nigeria Tax Administration Bill provides the legal basis for tax management, covering taxpayer identification, registration, assessment, collection, enforcement, and technology. The Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill replaced the FIROS, Federal Inland Revenue Service, with the Nigerian Revenue Service, NRS, to perform the role of revenue administration. And finally, the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill to transform the Joint Tax Board into the Joint Revenue Board with expanded mandates and responsibilities. These are the taxes we've not put into one because they are dealing with the same matter. Are there any benefits to this kind of engagements we are about to undertake? Having studied the tax bills myself and taking the time to compare with some African countries, notably Egypt, Morocco, South Africa, Ethiopia, and Namibia, I could see the benefits that have been enunciated for Nigeria and Nigerians in this tax bill. I will not go through everything that I have on my paper so that my colleagues can contribute. But suffice to say that these reforms for individuals, for the ordinary Nigerian, the youth, families, will benefit extensively because for the first time, there will be a complete exemption of low-income workers earning up to 1 million naira per annum from pay as you earn. They will no longer need to pay any tax whatsoever. The minimum wage, at least that is about 83,000 naira a month, which is above the minimum wage. So anybody on minimum wage, either in the public or private sector, will not need to pay that tax. It reduces the payee tax for those earning a monthly salary of 1.7 million or less. Zero VAT on food, healthcare, education, electricity generation, and transmission. If you are involved in any of these activities, it is zero VAT. I'll just mention 1 or 2 more. There is tax incentives for employers to hire more workers incrementally than in the previous 3 years. So in the earlier 3 years, if you begin to hire, as you hire more, you get tax incentives as is done in many countries, even in developed countries. There are several products that have been listed that are now exempted from the VAT. Baby products, renewable energy. So if you are going into solar business, you will not pay VAT. And so on and so forth. Our small businesses, since this is the focus of this administration, to support small businesses and expand the economy so that we can collect even more taxes as they grow in their businesses. Also have a lot of incentives in this new tax regime. There is an increase in the tax exemption threshold for small businesses with annual turnover of 25 million. So if you are at that level, 25 million to 50 million will be the threshold under which you will be exempted from tax. Exemption from company income tax for small businesses, tax will be at 10%. Elimination of withholding tax deduction of small business income for small businesses. These are innovations which I believe will benefit our country. also the introduction of the Office of Tax Ombudsman to protect vulnerable taxpayers against arbitrary tax assessments. And the bill requires that all tax disputes must be resolved by the Ombudsman in 14 days, not the current practice where in a year you'll be going to the tax office every day and they'll be running you up and down with no solution. Now it is mandatory that in 14 days every tax dispute must be resolved. And I believe that even for businesses, the major businesses and investors, there is a whole array of exemptions and that have been created in the new bill, including faster tax refunds within 90 days, tax reduction for expenses incurred by startup companies so that they are not killed in infancy. And I believe that for high income and high net worth individuals, there are also some streamlined exemptions for them. Mr. Speaker, we've had a lot of debates on and off this floor. We have had caucus meetings to discuss and look at the benefits and advantages of the bills and to identify some of the shortfalls. And we know that even for subnational governments, there are a lot of incentives that come in these new bills. Our governors have spoken very, very clearly and loudly and have presented a roadmap which has been accepted by the president himself, and that has calmed the nerves of everybody in all parts of the country. For those who have not seen the statements of the governors, let me spend 2-3 minutes on that. First, they reiterated, I'm using their word, their strong support for the comprehensive reform of the tax system to enhance fiscal stability and be in step with global best practices. Words of our governors. 2, they reviewed the VAT sharing formula to 50% equity, 30% derivation, and 20% population. This has also been accepted. They also said there should be no increase in the VAT rate. Also accepted. No increase in corporate income tax, the CIT, also accepted. Continued exemption of essential goods and agricultural produce from VAT to safeguard the welfare of Nigerian citizens. This has also been accepted. No terminal clause for Tedford. This has also been accepted. No terminal clause for Nassani, also accepted. No terminal clause for NITDA, also accepted. And this is the last paragraph in the statement of the governors, and I quote, the meeting supports the continuation of the legislative process at the National Assembly that will culminate in the eventual passage of the tax reform bills, unquote. This is the Nigerian Governors Forum. So what we are doing here is not only an affirmation of what they believe in, but it's a continuation of what we started earlier, which is what we believe in as part of our own duty. My dear colleagues, Mr. Speaker, a time comes in the history of every nation, community, of people, when they must pause to look behind, see where they are coming from, what mistakes they have made, what obstacles they have encountered, how they fought battles, and how they won and those that they lost. Review their present and map out a future for themselves. And that future must be better than the present, otherwise they have been wasting their time. And leaders who are responsible for not mapping out a better future, when the history of that community is written, their pages may be blank because they did nothing positive. Let us be remembered that under the leadership of our dear Speaker, and in our time, we were part of that movement, that process, that looked at the tax bills, consolidated them, put in the reform process to the betterment of our country so that production will be enhanced, job creation will be enhanced, security will be enhanced, we'll mobilize more money that will go to the local governments and the states, and that will empower the institutions and sectors and promote the energy of the factors and forces of production and exchange in Nigeria. That way, we would have been part of history, positive history, good history. I want to thank you, my colleagues, for listening to me, and I hope that we'll have a very positive conversation on this matter. Nigerians are waiting to hear from us that we have taken the right step in the right direction at this very moment. Thank you, and may God continue to bless us all.
The consultations have enlightened a lot of Nigerians, but we still have a lot of concern. We have concern, Nigerians have a lot of concern, and I believe this house that belongs to the House of Nigerians will do the needful at appropriate time. Mr. Speaker, some of the areas of concern by me and a lot of Nigerians, particularly we that are the lower level, Nigerians are very, very concerned.
How low?
No, not by height. Not by height, Mr.
Thank you, Minority Leader, for the correction.
Mr. Speaker, Section 146 proposes a gradual increase from the current 7.5% to 10% this year, then next year to 12.5% on VAT, that is value-added tax. While government can come with a lot of policies that can allow them implement some of their things, but still government have to also look at the economic hardships Nigerians are facing. The increase will definitely cause a lot of increase, particularly on food item transportations and the living standard of a common man. So government have to look at that, and maybe when at appropriate time the National Assembly has to look at ways, if there's any way we can even reduce the tax so that Nigerians can have a lot of opportunities. Also there's also introductions of development levy, which will also cause a lot of additional taxes. Apart from the recent increases in petrol, after removal of subsidy, the increase in electricity tariffs, and a lot of other increases, Nigerians are watching and waiting to see if there's other opportunities to support or assist the common man. Mr. Speaker, today, the international organizations have analyzed the Nigerian life expectancy rate to about a little bit above 50%. I'm also the whip. And I'm also the whip. You are also a whip, I'm also a whip. So my whip may be both stronger than yours. Mr. Speaker, these are areas that I'm sure that the House will definitely address it and ensure that we listen to the Nigerians. We listen to the areas that Nigerians want us to ensure we make some few amendments to accommodate the poor man, to ensure that we are working for the people. We are working for Nigerians. Because of time, during the public hearing, if the bill reaches there, we will also make some submissions to do all the necessary things. Mr. Speaker, my very honorable colleague, I rise to make that my comment and also to commend the Speaker and the leadership for showing maturity in handling these affairs from day one to day. Thank you and God bless you all.
Okay. So I will call on another Minority, Honorable Bamidele Salami. If you are ready, you have 1 to 2 minutes, please.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by observing that I hope we are protected. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I said I want to start by making an observation that all over the world, reforms are not the easiest things to accomplish. Reforms are usually...
Order, please.
Reforms are usually very painful, very disruptive. But reforms are always essential, needed, especially when countries realize the fact that they need to hurry up in the journey of development. And so I want to start by commending the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is the leader of government, who has brought this reform bill to the National Assembly. Because if we look at our tax laws in Nigeria, they have been some of the most obsolete, some of the most duplicative, if not multiplicative, of tax laws anywhere in the world. And if we're going to be honest with ourselves, these have resulted in stunted growth in most of our sectors, as well as dissuade investors from coming into this country to exploit and explore the greater opportunities of the resources that we have because of the lack of ease of doing business resulting from this multiplicity of taxes. So having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to also say, in line with what my leader said earlier, that whatever system, policy, or law or regulation that we are bringing on board, the first consideration must be the welfare of the majority of the Nigerian people. Those who can hardly afford to have 3 square meals, to afford good education, good healthcare system. And so when we look at any piece of legislation being proposed by the executive, especially as minorities, we ask ourselves, how does this law make life easier for the common man? How does it make it easier for people to access the basic things of life and contribute meaningfully to economic development? According to the majority leader in the lead debate, he has enunciated a lot of benefit that we have seen here, which I also adopt. But I want to say one more, Mr. Speaker, and that has to do with the principle of entrenching through federalism. Whatever legislation we are going to pass must ensure that more monies go to subnationals, the local government, the state government, because they are the closer tiers of government to the people. And this particular bill, I want to note, has made adequate provision for having more of the VAT proceed going to state government from what used to be the share of the federal government from 15% to 10%, which I think is very, very commendable. Just like when the issue of the fuel subsidy came on board, now more state and local government get more money. And the attention of Nigerians must be on how government that earn more money will now spend those money. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I support the general principles of this bill, and I'm sure that by the time it gets to the public hearing stage, more members of the public and interest will be able to come on board to add their voice on the need for us to have this reform on time, so that it doesn't become, like the reform in the oil sector that was delayed for over 20 years, that by the time we just woke up to pass the Petroleum Industry Act, it was almost becoming belated. I do hope that this bill passes through the second reading, Mr. Speaker, and I do support the second reading motion.
Every day we gather here, we move motions, we move bills to create new agencies. Federal health institution, universities, college of educations, ICT centers. We create a lot of agencies every day in this institution, Mr. Speaker. I also want you to know that all of these things we are planning to create, we will require a lot of money for them. The whole world is talking about artificial intelligence in order to grow our economy. We are going to require a lot of money for them. The general principle of this bill would allow us.
Please, order. Can we please get seated? Please. Order, please. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The general principle of these bills will allow us the level of funding that we need as a nation to grow into the next generation. Be mindful that about a week ago, Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States made a pronouncement that $500 billion will be spent for artificial intelligence. All of these things, Mr. Speaker, require a lot of funds. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say this, that yes, we have looked at some of these things and we know today that actually reforming our taxation laws is the right way to go. Mr. Speaker,
and front recorder, please collect that paper. With due respect for our members, they are to be seated and then they will be attended to. Mr. Speaker is going to pick them. Is the
principle of this bill consolidated?
Honorable members, please, let's be seated. Mr. Speaker will call us one by one, please.
Please go ahead, conclude.
So, Mr. Speaker, on a final note, if you look at all the frameworks that is being put in place, you look at the policies that are being put in place, we believe that these are what we need to take our nation to the next level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so submit.
Our next speaker will be our brand new Deputy Whip, Honorable Ibrahim Isiaka.
Personally, and I'm sure to all Nigerians, one of the best things to happen to us since we've been growing this economy is the harmonization of taxes in this country. As outlined in the highlights, from 60 to a maximum of 9. That's what is stated here. What best and what more can we ask for from this government rather than something like this? All our people flying the expressway with different levies, with different stickers, in multiples. It was counted about 47 sometimes ago. And these are what they are being harmonized and a single line. Even contractors applying for contract to bid. All of them now, they know that when they bid the certain percentage they are going to pay, it will give them what is going to be their consolidated income and the taxes they have to pay and manage the contract. So the expectations are always correct and with precision. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, let's look at the low-income earners, 800,000 naira. I may not be shocked sometimes when people will prefer that they are not promoted. Because when they are earning 800,000 naira and they know they are not going to pay tax to anybody, they will feel so sustained. This is part of what has been enshrined in this tax bill. And of course, Mr. Speaker, finally, the only thing that I just want to be included on this bill is that as much as we have penalties for tax evaders, I want us equally to have enshrined in this bill the managers of the taxes for any infractions or the same consequences that will be applied to tax evaders, government should equally bear the same consequence in return. And in this case, those that are applying the tax. Taxpayers will be so happy and glad to pay taxes when they see the reason they are paying these taxes. If it's for road construction, it must be applied and strictly it must be considered and seen by Nigerians that it is done. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, for want of time, like I said...
Time up.
For want of time, like I have said, for companies that are declaring loss, they said they will not pay tax. We need to be very careful so that everybody will not start telling us that they are declaring loss every year in the country. So we need to provide for safety net. If you declare tax for maybe 2 consecutive years, they must delete such a company from the Corporate Affairs Commission. or as the case may be. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I so submit.
We are today discussing the general principles and the merits of this bill tagged Tax Administration Bill 1756 HB. Mr. Speaker, this bill undoubtedly will enhance efficiency, ensure compliance, and harmonize tax collection within the 3 tiers of government. However, there are several inconsistencies and challenges this tax bill may pose in the tax administration of this country. And I believe the committee that will be charged with the responsibility of addressing some of the issues will definitely look at some of the issues that I will raise on this floor today. Some of these challenges, there is constitutional and jurisdictional concerns, particularly in section 141, which deals with supremacy clause, which contradicts some of the positions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Then there is the issue of overlap and on the existing laws, particularly Personal Income Tax Act, Company Income Tax Act, and the FRS Tax Act. There is some existing conflict that this bill may cause, which I believe the committee will definitely look at these issues. However, also there is the issue of fairness, practicability, and reasonability. How reasonable will this law be? Because law must be reasonable, must be fair, because they are going to govern human beings. There is the issue, or practical issue, of this law in section 122 and section 95 to section 119. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the tax, the VAT issue, the fiscalization issue, fiscalization clearly is about technology. How prepared are we to achieve that? So there is the concern of burdening the taxpayers. Then also there may be some level of exclusion where technology cannot reach. So it's a concern that should also be looked at by this assembly.
Honorable Sada Soli, 2 minutes more.
Mr. Speaker, there is administrative and operational issues. There is ambiguity. There is preponderance of ambiguity in this act because of the absence of interpretation clause. The interpretation clause is not robust, did not address the issue of derivation. What is derivation in this act? What does it mean? It needs to be defined so that it will be interpreted correctly, so that it will be applied with the section that it is talking about. There is the issue of artificial transaction. What is artificial transactions? There is the issue of tax planning. We need to interpret it correctly. There is the issue of tax supply. We need to interpret all these words because they have great impact.
With due respect, Honorable Sada Soli, time up, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Honorable Sada, please, just round up, please. Try to round up as quickly as possible.
Mr. Speaker, there is the concern of equity in section 77, where it talks about 60% of derivation to states. There is the need for the committee to address the issue, to look at the equity of states that are less in competition with other stronger states in the country.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to raise the exact points my good brother from GBR had raised about fairness, equity, and justice. He has espoused his points tremendously well. And he has also shown empathy
He has put faith in the committee that if this bill is passed for second reading, he has said that that committee should look into those points that he has highlighted. And to make matters easy as well, the governors have addressed most of the issues raised by him. They've spoken about the derivation. They've told us how many percent they want. They've spoken about freezing, the freezing of funding for TET Fund, NIDA, Nasseni, that they want those establishments to still exist in perpetuity. I don't think anybody has any misgivings about that anymore. I think that the governors have spoken as true Democrats, as true lovers of Nigerians. And when I look at the tax bill,
2 minutes.
And when I look at the tax bill itself, sir, it is so state-centric. It gives a lot of more money to states. Federal government reduces is 15% to 10% and gives the 5% to states. It allows states collect stamp duties, things that were not done before. It allows states get enhanced collection because it unifies all taxes.
Honorable Jamie Benson, time up.
And above all, sir,
You are doing well.
the tax law that we're talking about was promulgated in the 1930s. That should not be where Nigeria should be today, sir. I commend you, Mr. Speaker, for standing in the interest of Nigeria. I commend Mr. President for having the balls to do this at this critical time. And I commend our lawmakers. I mean, Sada Soli has spoken very, very well. All he wants and all we all want is to be able to negotiate, build consensus,
Time up,
and
please.
find a win-win situation for all. Nobody wants to oppress anybody. We want equity, justice, and fairness. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I want to align myself with all the speakers. But most importantly, sir, it's not just about, it's very easy to raise funds, for countries to raise funds. But another thing is utilization of those funds. I feel that if these tax bills are passed, that the funds generated should be properly utilized. The funds generated should be channeled towards amenities, basic amenities that will enhance the livelihood in our country. It should be channeled to public utilities, electricity, because a country like Nigeria up to today, we don't have constant electricity. We've heard about our situation with World Health today. I also believe that we should enhance and increase funds to health. So it's not just, I'm concerned more about utilization of the funds. We have seen that where we're heading to now, we are going to have a lot of funds available. But please, I'm begging, I'm pleading with the executive arm of government. I'm pleading with Mr. President and the states, thank you, that these funds, if generated, should be properly utilized to solve the problem of our basic needs. And also, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of company tax, sir, you know,
Honorable Nolly, 2 minutes more, sir.
Sir, thank you. You know, every country, the way you present your company tax also determine how investors come into your country. So we should also be mindful about the interest of the investors, because our country, we've been talking about investors, people coming into the country to invest. So we should look at the company tax and see how it will enhance to to promote investors coming into the country to invest.
Honorable
So
Nolly,
thank you.
time up, sir.
Thank you. Let me appreciate Mr. Speaker and every one of us here. This bill is supposed to be a very difficult bill, but by virtue of consultations, we have gotten where we are today. Thank you very much.
The bills before us tend to address some fundamental issues that have to do with revenue generation in the country.
Honorable Igarue, please can you approach the chair?
Therefore,
Honorable Oeve.
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Reforms are an integral part of nation's development, and the bills before us tend to address some of those perceived gaps in revenue generation as we drive towards development. So please let us give these bills a second reading, and then we allow for the usual legislative procedures to continue. Thank you so much.
Well, a lot has been said, and I'll just add my voice in view of the time constraint in two areas. Number one is that this House embraces reform ab initio. On the 8th of November 2023, we launched a legislative agenda on this House. And when you look at Agenda 1 to 5 of that agenda, it's all about reform. Judicial reform, police reform, law reform, economic reform, and all of that. Therefore, this tax reform is well in line with what we have set out to do for the people of Nigeria. The second point is that as a nation, we do need a reform of our tax system. The current tax that we have, laws that we have, are very archaic, arbitrary, and fragmented. And I think Honorable Jimmy Benson mentioned a few of those. Our tax to GDP as a nation is one of the lowest in the continent, at about 6%, and the continent ratio of about average of about 16.6%. We definitely need to enhance our revenue and tax return. Our budget is relatively low, and even at that, the deficit financing is growing and rising. And therefore, we need to rejig that and rejig our tax system and our reform system. Added to that is that the tax system is lopsided. It is not so much about informal sector. There are so many underground economy that we have that our tax system need to reach. When we look deeply into this law, there are quite a number of those that have been addressed. There is no system or no law that doesn't have
Honorable
challenges.
2 minutes more, please.
There are no system that doesn't have challenges. And I'm happy that from the generality of what we have heard from our governors and from the populace, they are ready for us to talk to the committee that will look at this at the public hearing stage. I therefore want to join others in saying that
Time up, Honorable
this law
GNI.
is good, this system is very perfect, and that we should pass it to go into the second reading. To pass it for second reading, rather. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my colleagues, as we go ahead to pass these tax bills. Thank you.
I rise to lend my voice to this very important bill. And I'd like to start by stating that I support the general principles of this bill because it seeks to balance income. The essence of taxation is to make it in a manner that is progressive, where the poor get better benefits, where we take more from the rich and pass on to the poor to balance incomes. I'd like to talk about the employment relief, where Section 164, Sub 4A and B provides exemptions and reliefs for additional employment for companies who have taken new employees and on a salary of 100,000 or less. This bill proposes a 50% discount or rebate for them, and it's a way of improving employment opportunity for our teeming unemployed. I'd like to also talk about the opportunities available for SMEs. If Nigeria, with over 250 million people, has about half of its population as women, I see this bill and this fiscal reform as a good time for Nigerian women who are hustling day and night, especially in the informal sector, or budding entrepreneurs with young businesses who are oftentimes beladen or overburdened by tax pressure. This bill takes away that burden if your annual turnover is below 50 million, as against what used to obtain when it was businesses below 25 million. So I look at the overall population of the target beneficiaries of the populist benefit or nature of this bill, and I give it a well-conceiving idea, not minding that no bill is totally in itself self-sufficient, because the dynamics of law is that it is dynamic in nature. And that I mean by saying that if this bill is supported by all of us to get to second reading,
Honorable Miriam Odinaka,
stakeholders can
I stand
come
to be gender biased.
and speak
Continue.
on how it supports or affects them, especially the subnationals. I like to use my time properly, our leader. And I like to also thank the federal government for giving up their 5% as a stabilization to support the cushioning of this process, while also explaining the need to abolish the sunset clause.
Miriam Odinaka, 2 minutes more,
thank you, sir. The sunset clause for TED fund is something that should be expunged. And I believe that stakeholders will submit memoranda to that effect, because TED fund has proved to be an interventionist agency which has come to bridge the gap, infrastructure gap in our tertiary institutions. And giving life to a child will only be improper to come when the baby is growing and you want to take off life from that same child. If the issue is with the probity
Order, please.
the National Assembly is willing
Honorable Madam, please,
to oversight and introduce stringent actions for and guidelines for assessing the funds. I like to also advise that there could be a digitization of audited accounts in the new bill, which would stop the rampant or incessant frivolous issuance of account statements, audited accounts by companies. This I mean by companies submit a different account to Corporate Affairs Commission. Then they submit a different account to FIRS in a bid to lower their incomes. So I think that this should be digitized in a manner that what you submit is what will be used for you. I also want to advise against executive issuance of exemption orders.
Honorable Miriam, please.
Overall, I submit the general principles of this bill again, and I pray that it goes to second reading where stakeholders will make their further observations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, honorable colleagues, for your rapt attention.
My respected colleagues, Mr. Speaker, all the bills, with the exception of the bill dealing with tax administration, have no interpretation clauses. You know, as I do, Mr. Speaker.
Let us please not be repetitive. I'm sure, I could remember Honorable Sada raised that issue, Honorable Jimmy did. So please, honorable colleagues, if
I'm not repeating.
If a speaker has spoken on a subject matter, let us try not to repeat the same thing, just for guidance subsequently. Go ahead.
Yes. The interpretation clause, a bill without an interpretation clause, Mr. Speaker, is a blind bill, subject to abuse and subject to also to the whims and caprices of whoever that is going to interpret that law. So all the bills, with the exception, only the tax administration bill has interpretation clause, others do not have, all the three. Therefore, we must ensure that there is an interpretation clause on the other three bills. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I know as a chairman of the House Committee on University Education, the wonderful job TED Fund is doing in the education sector. Therefore, my position is that these agencies, TED Fund, NIDA, Nasseni, should be retained. The clause dealing with their systematic phasing out should be completely deleted, Mr. Speaker. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Fulata, 2 minutes more.
I've not even started.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Speaker, Mr. Speaker, all the bills have inconsistency clauses, equating them with the Constitution. I'm here, for example, give an example with section 197, 198, 199, 200, 2001, and 2002 especially, making statements on inconsistency. Any bill that is inconsistent with this act is termed null and void. All the inconsistency clauses should be removed. And the bills also seek to amend over 40 acts which have not been placed before us. Those 40 acts should be placed before us so that we compare against those bills. About 40 acts are being repealed and being phased out by these acts that we are dealing with, Mr. Speaker. Then I'm also putting it forward that Section 38 of the Taxation Act.
We have other honorable members queued up that they
Section
want to
38.
talk. Please round up.
Section 38 presents a position of double taxation. If you are buying a property, the buyer will pay tax. Also, the seller will pay tax. This amounts to double taxation. And finally, my position on the inheritance tax. Inheritance tax, as a Muslim, we don't tolerate inheritance tax. You don't take away from the property, from the wealth of the orphan and give it away to any other person, Mr. Speaker. Finally, I posit that the VAT sharing formula should be based on 50% equity, 20% population, 30% reservation. I so submit, Mr. Speaker. I'm not deviating. This is the position of the governors.
Oh, that's okay. So you are just reiterating. That's okay. Good to know.
Mr. Speaker, firstly, I would like to commend the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for his sagacity, for his pertinacity and grit to ensure that this bill gets to the National Assembly for consideration. Mr. Speaker, a popular senator once said, if you speak the truth, you die. Tell a lie, you die. Therefore, I would prefer to speak the truth. I think it will be more palatable. Mr. Speaker, time. Mr. Speaker, am I protected, Mr. Speaker?
No, maybe you should answer us.
Well, we speak the truth, we still die. So
order, please. Order, please. Order, please.
Mr. Speaker, it is true that the current structure, tax structure in the country is quite antiquated. And the modification of some of our laws is a good thing. Then again, it is important that we take cognizance of the level of degradation, destitution, and deprivation that currently exists. So when we say we are going to increase the value-added tax from 5% incrementally to 7.5% and then to 10%, it gives me the impression that we are totally insensitive to the current state of our people. Don't get me wrong. This bill is beautiful, it's revolutionary, it propels the governors to think outside the box and come up with very clinical ways to generate their own revenue and tap into the resources that they have, that they are endowed with in their various states. But Mr. Speaker, it is important that we take cognizance of how this country has removed the subsidies from fuel and petroleum products.
Honorable Alexander Mascot Ubeche.
I'm about to round up, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now, Mr. Speaker, we removed subsidy, we increased the electricity tariff, and also we're about to shoot up on this one, the VAT. All I am saying, by the time this bill, which I fully support, should get to the, public hearing, I am appealing to all Nigerians to remain vigilant. Let us all come together and come up with clinical ways to make sure that the contents and the clauses in this bill is commensurate and is in tandem with the way we live our lives. So, Mr. Speaker, on that note, I just want to say that I'm in support of this very bill, and I pray that it truly and positively revolutionizes our nation. Thank you very much.
Based on what the majority leader have said, on which triggers the consultation to all the stakeholders, from state governors, ACF, all other stakeholders, which bring about this suggestion that the areas that we are afraid of have been observed and to an extent has been cleared. Some. Let me appreciate Mr. Speaker for giving us the listening ears, for showing the leadership and way forward, by bringing us together to understand why we should understand the importance of giving second opportunity for second reading, so that all other submissions from stakeholders, from all quarters, in vertical and horizontal interest, will partake, will participate, will contribute during the public hearing. On this note, I'm calling, like my brother Mascot said, all and sundry Nigerians, now the bill, by the grace of God, if we do give
Honorable
Garba
Inua,
for
Honorable
second,
Garba
for
Inua,
second,
please.
For second reading, it will go to the public to give their best. So let them be ready. We'll be there with them. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, the essence and the fundamental of this bill, I understand, is to allow government to have more revenues. Let me make this appeal directly to Mr. President and all stakeholders in Nigeria. When this bill is passed into law, it will give Nigeria opportunity to have more revenues. That is more money.
Right, Honorable.
Let me...
Mercy.
Please, leader. I know you know what I'm going to say, which affects your constituency. Mr. Speaker, we have lingering issues which affect the economy of Nigeria, which are just 5. If these monies were raised, I want to make an appeal to government of Nigeria under Mr. President that should be up and doing in looking at the recharging of Lake Chad Basin is fundamental. There is economic viability. The oil exploration in Kolmani will help.
Confine yourself with the subject matter,
project,
please.
Please. Mambila hydroelectric project will support the economy of this country. Baro Port project that has been abandoned will support Nigeria. The dredging of River Niger will revitalize the Nigerian economy.
Please round up.
With this, Mr. Speaker, I raise my case until we meet in the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to go straight to a reference point. VAT collection in 2020, VAT was collected, and it was 1.53 trillion. Out of this 1.53 trillion, 51% represented import VAT and international services. The top contributing sector are professional services and telecoms, which is 10.6%. Other manufacturers, 10.07%, commercial and trading, 5.06%, breweries, bottling, and beverage, 3.90%, transport and haulage, 2.84%. If you look at the percentage of VAT collected internally, aside from the one that's international services and import, it constitutes only 20%. While we have so much that we can contribute more than countries like South Africa, Equatorial Guinea, Zambia, that they contributed 70% to their GDP in terms of VAT collection. This happened due to serious corruption in tax administration procedures in Nigeria. Today, we're talking about increasing more revenue in Nigeria, while issue of corruption has not been addressed. If we should go this way, we can increase this tax or have so many ways to generate revenue and still will not get what we want if we fail to address the issue of corruption. Finally, because of time, Mr. Speaker, under section 101 of the bill, of the proposed bill, there is a penalty of 1 million naira for those that fail to notify the relevant tax authority is liable to pay an administrative penalty of 1 million naira. So I think we should also include a stiff penalty for those tax officials that will not do their work in accordance to the law by promoting corruption and so on.
Honorable member, please don't distract the speaker. Hold on, please. Just hold on.
With this, I will say thank you for the opportunity given to me.
One of the reasons why we are seated here, to get the best for our dear country, Nigeria. These bills all seek to rejig our tax system, which we all agree ought to be rejigged. However, in every law, you have the spirit and the letter of the law. I think that we are in agreement that these bills, the spirit behind them, are good for us as a nation, but we have issues with some of the letters of the law. And these issues we have highlighted here, and I will want to adopt all the highlights thrown by my colleagues. I would not want to repeat them. Safe to say or emphasize on a few areas. We have incremental tax contained in the tax administration law, which is actually the one that appears to be contentious amongst the four. The question one will ask, rather than have tax increase, is it impossible for us to have a decrease of tax? And the answer is no. From all the indices we have seen from the government, including indices that has to do with reduction of inflation, we can have decremental VAT in this bill. And so I want to support Honorable Dasuki that we should look at reduction of VAT. It is possible. Aside that, all the other issues, both the issues of conflict with the Constitution and other laws, and then the issues of ambiguity, I believe that we can tidy them up. One good thing is that innovation is coming. It could be difficult, but it is desirable. And so whilst we oppose some of the letters of the law, we support the spirit of the law in toto. And as parliamentarians, we know the stage at which we can attack those letters and correct them. And we want to assure Nigerians that as we stand as members of this parliament, that those letters, we will monitor them as watchdogs and ensure that the letters are corrected as we have promised. I would therefore say that generally we support this bill, that we put the vote. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, since we all agree with the spirit and intent of the bills, I will pray that we support the second reading of these bills.
Come and seek for clearance here, please.
At the appropriate time, we dot the I's and cross the T's. Thank you.
Your Excellency, my respected colleagues, I think I will have to adopt the approach by most members that today, given the sense of responsibility and looking not only at the body language of members that are seated in these great chambers, Mr. Speaker, that the mood here is not only solemn, but it is patriotic. Our members have really exhibited a great sense of patriotism, dedication, and commitment to actually discuss a matter that is, of course, of very critical importance and relevance to the welfare and well-being of our people. Mr. Speaker, like I said, the strategy adopted by all of us is to, first of all, commend you. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, we commend you. We commend you for the legislative diplomacy which you have actually inculcated in the discharge of your duties as the presiding officer of the 10th House of Representatives. This diplomacy, Mr. Speaker, is what has kept this House under one roof, united. Mr. Speaker, it is this experience and this sagacity that has made possible a very pleasant and palatable discussions of these important bills on the floor of this House with everyone flying on the same page. Mr. Speaker, I want to repeat that today I stand a proud member of the 10th House of Representatives under your watch. I am proud because as a representative of the people, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, today we are putting on record that this is indeed the House of Nigerian people. This is indeed a House that can stand non-partisan when the interest of our people out there is at stake. Mr. Speaker, I am proud that for the first time in my history of being a parliamentarian of over 33 years in the floor of this House of Representatives, I have seen under your leadership and by extension the leadership of the other body of principal officers a strategy that put on hold an executive bill, not only one bill, executive bills that came with all the speed to this House of Representatives. On hold because you said, hold it until we consult. Hold it and let us dialogue. Hold it and let us discuss the interests and the expectations of the common man on the street whom we are representing on this floor. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe that by now every member of this House has consulted widely. I have consulted. Every good member of this House has also dialogued widely. I have dialogued with the people I'm representing. Mr. Speaker, today we are able to face these pieces of legislation with an informed mind and definitely with a mind of committing to the expectations of our people. I believe, based on these consultations, Mr. Speaker, and dialogue, the members of the House of Representatives today, individually and collectively, are able now to differentiate and identify the bathwater and the baby. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, today I believe we are all informed we can be able to differentiate between the chips and the rice. And so also in your wisdom, Mr. Speaker, and the wisdom of the leadership, the first time you are coming up with a strategy that came up with a special committee, a reviewed committee to go into the business of this legislation so that each and every state will have a representation on the finance committee that has the statutory duties to actually conduct the public hearing. Members of the caucuses that are providing shock absorption policy and administration here are also members of this adjusted committee, a large committee. It is all with a view to ensuring that what the people expect from us is what will be embedded in this legislation at the end of the day. This, of course, would not have been possible, Mr. Speaker, if the executive arm of government, led by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had also not graciously allowed us to practice democracy in the real sense. I salute Mr. President for allowing us to do our job in our own way. I salute Mr. President for not interfering.
Dogo, 1 minute.
And when he said so, when we were allowed to do our job, today, Mr. Speaker, we are now doing our job to the best interest.
You still have the floor.
Your Excellency, I want to say, based on the level of information and guidance we have all garnered from our people, from stakeholders, I want to believe that this House, under your leadership, and in subsequent engagement of these bills, will do justice to the bill and will do justice to the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I am proud to be part of it, and we thank members for the level of cooperation and understanding they have exhibited today. And I want to believe that all we have discussed will be brought to bear.
Mr. Speaker, put the question.
Will be brought to bear in subsequent considerations of this legal framework. On a final note, Mr. Speaker, I want to also join the lead contributor, the lead debater, who is the leader of the House of Representatives today, whom in his own presentation stated clearly and to the admirations of members that no to the phasing out of relevant agencies of government that are popular and have also had a lot to deliver to the expectation of the people. Nasseni, for instance, the TED Fund, for instance, the Speaker, the leader of the House, I quote you, Nida, for instance, I quote my leader for being so sagacious to say that these agencies will not be defaced. They will remain to continue to serve our people. Mr. Speaker, others contributed to the issue of legislating or charging a tax on inheritance tax. This is also a no-go area. Our people have agreed to address all these gray areas. And we thank the Governors Forum. We thank the Governors Forum for their interface with you as our leader and their subsequent interactions.
Honorable Dogo, 3 minutes more, sir. 3 minutes more, sir.
Individual members, sir, to be able to arrive at this development at this moment. And even for those of us who do not have governors, but we have God in our state, we have contacted our spokesman, the linkman. My linkman to my governor is Honorable Madaki and Honorable Kabiru Rurum, and they have told me that my governor is on the same page. So I want to say, with all sense of commitment, that this House and honorable members that are seated here, we should allow this bill to go for second reading. And like my colleague has said, at that point, we will be able to actually tidy up. And we hereby promise Nigerians that the best will come out of the bill in the larger interest of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to guide us, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I want to believe that on this very important bill, all had been said and all concerns addressed. And like it has been said, through your good leadership, on the consultation that was done is what gave us the enabling environment and what we are doing today. And the trust that people have given, believing in your capacity and your ability, I want to believe that Nigerians will go to sleep. This is very important bill that have almost caused division in the House in terms of understanding and our political landscape. But God, in His infinite wisdom, have guided you in handling this matter, resolving the matter between us, other stakeholders, behind closed door. I think what we are doing today is more ceremony. I want to believe that by the grace of God, the public hearing will be done in a very good manner and will return report, at least from the statement that was mentioned, just like Adodogo had mentioned. Immediately he mentioned this. I keep saying there's no need for any other contribution. Reason being, all the areas that are gray, that are causing misunderstanding, the leader in his submission, which forms part of our voice and proceeding of today, said and cleared that these areas are not going right. Mr. Speaker, I was once a stakeholder, a desk officer of Education Trust Fund. And I will say with pride that I was part of those in 1992 that struggled for Education Trust Fund, which now translates today to what we have as State Fund. And I know the benefit. And as a desk officer, I can tell you for free, go around the country. 90% of institutions are developed capital in terms of infrastructure with State Fund. And there's nobody that can take away that. So the attempt by those who do not possibly understand well to take off that one is like killing education. That the government have addressed, and you in have agreed to step down some of those things. I believe it's done out of patriotism, not out of ego. It is in the interest of our own country to have these institutions in existence. Neseni is one very, very important institution. If you go around the country against her, see their work in terms of research, nobody can take away. And I believe we need them, and we need all of them. We need all the institutions. Like my brother said, the issue of inheritance, taking tax on it, for me as a Muslim, it is prescribed for me in the Quran, and the freedom to practice my religion is guaranteed in the Constitution. So that submission in the Constitution or provision is what is making some of us to say, no, it is guaranteed. And so, in provision of inheritance sharing, there's particular form. Nobody will take that. If you do that one, you are causing chaos. And I want to believe, yes, these are some of the things that happen in advanced countries, but we differ in culture, we differ in background, and I want to thank you for what you have done. What you have done and what we have gotten today is not only bringing our coming nerves within us, but including the nation. And I want to say that you have done a lot, and the country is going to benefit. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of us. May He guide us as we go further. I want to believe that with the horse trading that has taken place, everybody should go to sleep. I think this is more of a confirmation that we should give. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
I appreciate members. All the issues raised, I have noted down. And I want to assure that the public hearing will take note of all these issues, and when we do come back with the reports, I'm sure all the issues raised will be accommodated. I appreciate all the leaders. I appreciate you, the leader of the House. Thank you for leading us well, and thank you. God bless Nigerians.
Those in support should say aye. Those against should say nay. That is of it. Thank you very much. Clerk.
A bill for an act to provide for assessment, collection of, and accounting for revenue accruing to the Federation, federal, states, and local governments, prescribe the powers and functions of tax authorities and for related matters. Second reading. A bill for an act to repeal the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act No. 13, 2007, and enact the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill to establish Nigeria Revenue Service charged with powers of assessment, collection of, and accounting for revenue accruable to the government and of the Federation and for related matters. Second reading. A bill for an act to establish the Joint Revenue Board, the Tax Repeal Tribunal, and the Office of the Tax Ombud and for the harmonization, coordination, and settlement of disputes arising from revenue administration in Nigeria and for related matters. Second reading. A bill for an act to repeal certain acts on taxation and consolidate the legal frameworks relating to taxation and enact the Nigeria Tax Act to provide for taxation of income, transactions and instruments and for related matters. Second reading.
So I refer to the Committee on Finance for further legislative action.
Those were Highlights of the debate of the House plenary of the 12th of February 2025. And meanwhile, lawmakers have been applauding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for assenting to the North Central Development Commission bill, which will establish that commission.
I sponsor it with the members from the North Central region. About 50 members co-sponsored it. And to the glory of God, today the bill has come to reality. We're also made to understand that a senator from the Senate also sponsored it. So at the end of the day, it was Concord conference committee was set up, and where there are differences like the headquarters of the commission. I put Lafia, Nasarawa State Capital, as the headquarters of the committee of the commission, while the Senate put Abuja, and the conference committee actually approved Lafia, Nasarawa State Capital, as the headquarters of the commission. So today, to the glory of God, I want to thank God for everything. I want to thank Mr. President, and I want to thank everybody, the Speaker, the North Central governors for their support, and members and senators that have put in support, leadership of the House that have supported this bill to come to reality. We're looking at roads, our community roads, our regional roads connecting one state to another. You understand that Kogi, Kwara, and Niger have a link. They connect to each other. You also understand that Nasarawa, Kogi have a link. You also understand that Plateau have a link with Nasarawa. Benue have a link with Nasarawa. So once this commission comes, all those roads linking, okay, for example, sometimes ago we move a joint motion, myself, Honorable Wasi, Right Honorable Idris Wasi, and some other honorable members from Plateau. Because from Nasarawa, my own constituency, Wamba precisely, there is a road that link Wasi, Lantang, Wasi, Shandam, and in the Plateau from Nasarawa. So imagine that road is being utilized or open or constructed. It's going to make a lot of things easy for our people in terms of agriculture, closeness to market, and so on and so forth. We have other linking roads, from Benue, from Kogi to Kwara to Niger. Once all these are put together, it will boost the economy of this region. It will increase the revenue of the region and even the nation Nigeria. And of course, looking at agriculture, because North Central region is known for agriculture. And I think most of the food, because Benue and so many other states, Nasarawa, we have food basket. Most of the food consumed in the country and even being exported are mostly from the region. But over time, because of the crisis, the farmer header crisis, we have been backward. So the coming of this commission will actually help the region to be able to harness its potentials, especially in terms of agriculture. So eventually, when the commission is being set up proper, we have committees. Already the Senate has already appointed chairman and deputy of the committee, and of course they will have members. Mr. Speaker, who has been a pillar behind this bill, will also set up the committees from the House. And this committee will work together to ensure that this commission gets its rightful footing. And the committee, especially the National Assembly, will go back and sensitize our people, because members from each of these states are members in the National Assembly. They'll go back and sensitize our people on what the commission is all about. And of course, sensitization and enlightenment will be one of the major functions and duties of the committee members of the National Assembly, and even the commission, so that our people will be able to know. Because everything that is going to be done in this commission is going to be done fairly, and everybody is going to be carried along. Because the state within the region will have a stake in this whole commission. So there will be that sensitization. Aside the MD, the chairman, we also have 2 executive directors. We also have directors, about 9 directors. All these will come from a competitive advert and process, of recruiting the right people to drive this whole process. So I am very confident, and whether I'm in the committee from the House or not, as Deputy Chairman's Committee on Public Accounts, I'll ensure that I am putting, I will ensure that those who are going to drive this, those who are going to be appointed, get the right information and guide them on how to go about it.
And that's the size of our package for today. We thank you so much for watching. Do join us again for another episode of the program. I am Itaire Ikben. Bye for now.